Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversation at Home. In this case, it'll be 4 homes. My name is Scott Mantz. I'll be moderating today's conversation about the new film, The Outpost. It drops on demand Friday, July 3rd. The movie tells the story of the Battle of Kamdesh, based on a true story about the soldiers of Bravo Troop 361 Cav at U.S. Army Combat Outpost Keating came under attack from Taliban soldiers. 8 Americans were killed, 27 wounded. This happened on October 3rd, 2009. We're going to welcome today. First, we're going to welcome director Rod Lurie. Rod, welcome SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversation at Home.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Scott.
And playing Staff Sergeant Clint Ramisha, Scott Eastwood. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Scott. I like you. I like you with that name, partner.
You like that? Me too, pal. Also, please welcome Staff Sergeant Ty Carter, played by Caleb Landry Jones. So let's start, Rod, with you. This book, screenplay, this is you're a West Point grad yourself. You're a journalist, a former journalist, just like an author of the book. And what a perfect fit for you.
Well, it really was a perfect fit. And I've been waiting a long time to get a movie like this and to do, I always wanted to do a war film. And in particular, Scott, I wanted to do a war film that honored my brothers and sisters who were in the service, meaning a war film about this particular war. I never served in combat. I graduated the peacetime army. And so if I couldn't be with my brothers and the women that were fighting on the battlefield, I guess I could honor them like this. I mean, it's nowhere close, but at least I can do them some sort of justice. So yeah, you're right. This was very important to me.
Scott, I want to ask, the first time that you read the screenplay and you knew what you were in store for this shoot, what were the initial conversations you had with Rod, some of the concerns you might have had for yourself about how this movie was going to play out?
Sure. Well, to be honest, I didn't know what was in store. To Rod's credit, I don't know if I just didn't know the story well enough or didn't understand Rod's vision in the beginning. And so I was quite hesitant to taking on the role. And maybe because I had done a few other war movies and I had felt in my mind that I had maybe exhausted that genre. But, Rod really had a real strong vision and how he wanted to deliver the film and make people feel when watching. And, all those things, he did what he said he was going to do. And the film is really, as it sits, I think, and Rod would tell you better, but was more or less his vision and his, what he delivered.
Yeah, Caleb, I want to ask you about, when did you know that this was a movie that you had to make, and who was really crucial in helping you decide to make this film?
Well, quite a few people. My heart's racing a little right now. I don't know if it's the cigarette. I think it's what we're talking about. But yeah, my brother read it first. I gave it to him right off the bat because I don't know jack nothing about, much, especially war. And so I gave it to him. And he had met Ty previously before, about a few years back, I think, when I gave it to him. And he just flat out told me I was doing it. I told him I was going, well, we gotta talk to more people. That we gotta do more than reading it. That's great, but I really I wanted to be a part of something very special, and like Rod was saying, something that really honored the men and women that gave their lives, and it was very important. And I hadn't done one before, and so to me, like Scott, being after having maybe doing a few and being very particular about he does another one, I was very particular because it was the first, and so I really wanted it to be something just really special. And I felt that whoever it was that was making it I wanted to see the same thing from them as probably they would want to see from me. And met Rod in the Mel's Diner. I love Mel's Diner for one thing. And we just talked for a while, and I got the sense from him, I think the same thing he got the sense from me, is that we were going to do anything and everything we could to make this as real as possible, and to honor the fallen, and that no amount of energy was going to be every aspect of energy was going to be expelled, nothing uncovered. And to me, that was everything, you know. I think it was for a lot of everybody that was part of it.
You know, I want to ask Rod, you were in pre-production on this film, and something happened to make it even more of a personal journey for you to take this movie on and do right. What happened?
Well, before I answer that, I want to point out that when Caleb talks about his brother, well, the one thing that he left out is that his brother was a Marine, and his brother lost both his legs in Iraq. And he told Caleb, you know, you're going to play this role. And I can understand when his brother told him, you know, you're going to play that role, why he felt a special need to make it, right? And I met his brother, and I would do anything his brother told me to do also. He's one tough guy. And it's really interesting because you know, when I first met Caleb, you were you know, I don't know, a little skinnier than olive oil, and you had
a more flowered shirt, perhaps.
Yeah, you had hair that's longer than you have now, and I think you were celebrating the legalization of marijuana and in Los Angeles, and yet he's such a great actor. And when he told me that he could do this, and we talked a little bit about his brother, I had no reservations whatsoever. He went to visit with Ty Carter. Ty calls me and he says, this guy's great. Is he going to go to the gym? You know, he's what he wanted to know.
Is he going to cut the Texas accent? He's going to leave that behind, right, Rob?
Yeah, that's right. All that. So, but yeah, Scott, when about this time that we're talking right now, when I was in Bulgaria 2 years ago, I was in prep, and I got a call from my mom saying that my son Hunter was in a hospital in Michigan, and the nurse told me on the phone that he wasn't going to make it, and I flew to Michigan hoping that he would make it. Sorry to buzzkill, but you know, you brought it up, but I got to Michigan just in time to see him expire in front of my eyes. And my daughter said to me at the time, you know, Dad, I know you're not going to want to make this film now, but if Hunter knew that this film in particular went down because of him, it would be so destructive. So I've got to say that when I went back, the level of support that I had from everybody, and this is a very, very difficult film to make. But with the combination of knowing where my heart was, with the combination of all these soldiers that were on the set with us, and with the internal heart that these two actors and Orlando and several of the other actors who were actually vets had, this was going to be a never say die experience for all of us. I mean, fucking Scott shows up with a broken ankle. His ankle's broken, you know? You've seen the movie, right, Scott?
Yes.
You've seen this movie.
You
did that, all that shit.
I had no idea.
You did it on a broken ankle.
Yeah. What was it? The last week, right, Scott, that you were able to, you know, able to get out and actually stand up and whatnot?
Well,
wasn't it the last week?
Without pain, you know.
Well, no, I don't know if there was no
did a
pain.
lot of it
I bet
with
you there
pain.
was still pain.
No, I got fast-growing bones, guys.
Oh man.
And let me tell you something. No bone spurs for Scott Eastwood. Bone spurs aren't going to stop him. And anyway, when we were on that set, you know, I love my son more than anything that you can ever imagine. And the movie's going to open in Los Angeles on that, tomorrow, which will be July 2nd, second anniversary of his death. And I've been on many movie sets. Scott and Caleb, we've been on many movie sets. I think it'd be hard pressed to find a movie set that had sort of more of a sense of mission among not just the actors, but the crew. And it is not a platitude when these two guys talk about honoring these guys. That is not a platitude. That is bullshit you hear all the time. Okay, but it wasn't in this case. It was for my son, but it was for these 8 men who died and their families. And nobody was going to give up on this one. Nobody.
Scott, I want to ask you about the brotherhood of the actors, the cast, of really banding together to not only tell the story, but tell us about the physical prep that you had to do, especially with a broken ankle, and also just the other research they had to do, talking to the soldiers who were there, their families, and so on.
Sure. Well, as far as the Brotherhood, I mean, Rod sort of touched on it. I was extremely lucky in the sense that the people that worked on this film, from the cast that Rod put together, were really everyone was really great. There were no shitheads, which doesn't always happen, to be honest, on films, in the business we're in. But everybody was just really great, and no, there was no ego, there was no bullshit, and that made things, I don't know, maybe just everybody knew, we were all going to come in there, and there was going to be no BS. We were doing it to honor these people, and we knew the weight that Rod was carrying as well, on top of it, of all that, with his son passing. So that when you have people all the like-minded, it's just easy. Everybody just kind of cinched up, and we did it. As far as research, I think you start, at least my process is just in the beginning is just learning everything you can, right? I get out a journal. I get a journal for every character I play, whether it's real or not. In this case, the guy's still alive, so it made it easier. He also had a book that he wrote, and you're able to suck up a lot of information. A ton of information online nowadays. You can find out anything about anybody, and so that makes it really easy from an informational standpoint. You just start sucking as much information as you can, and then I'm not really sure if you had another question.
Yeah, that's okay. You answered it. You're good. Absolutely. Caleb, I'm going to ask you, having Ty Carter on set, how did that elevate your performance? How did that bring something out of your performance that you didn't even expect to be there when you started prepping for the movie?
Well, I expected it to be there because I knew he was going to be there. And fortunately and unfortunately, at the same time, my brother was there too. And, but I think I got there and I felt really not ready. And I felt like a phony. And I felt like, and somehow there's an aspect of it that I think really works in the movie of this not fitting in and kind of false bravado and certain aspects that were that were natural, and finding my kind of footing within, like, we shot it all in chronological order, and I've never been a part of that before. So really we were able to start from the beginning and get all the way to the end, and really have, there wasn't really, I don't know, it was easy in that way to realize where you were, in the story and stuff at any given day, at any given time, because what just happened, for the most part. And I don't know. I think the first few weeks I was really kind of figuring it out in a way, and then by the time the firefight happens, there's kind of no choice to kind of ask any more questions, and it's all physicality and it's all responding. And so that was by the time Ty got there and my brother John got there, and so then it was just a question of like, how much, how much, and where to place it, kind of exactly, and between having Rod and then those two fellas, it was pretty evident how scared I was supposed to be, or what the moment, and I knew that was coming. I just didn't know what was going to happen when it got there. And I think a lot of us probably like that, until we were there in doing the one shot, knowing what's going to be asked of us, but not sure exactly maybe how that's going to come out until we're on our feet and putting it into action, But I was really blessed to have those two there, and I got there and I was just calling Ty. Oh, Ty, wait a second, wait a second. What about da 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 da? And then this was all good. This was a good nervous freaking out. It all. I don't know. I'm trying to talk about too much, I think.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great, Caleb. Rod, I want to ask, when I was watching the film, the second half of the movie, when it really hits the fan,
Right.
A lot of the combat scenes are done in very long, complete takes with no cuts, no edits.
That's right.
And the first thing I thought of, and I want to ask all of you about this, but I want to start with you, Rod, is about the choreography. Because you're not just talking about doing a scene in a complete take. You're talking about doing a scene in a complete take when there are pyrotechnics going off and guys running around and chaos. How do you control the chaos and how do you choreograph that?
Well, Caleb's laughing because it's very difficult. One of the things that I did is when Scott broke his ankle, I had to negotiate with the insurance company to get the movie back on its feet, and had to reschedule everything and so on. But what I bought was 2 more weeks of preparation, and I spent those 2 weeks with our stunt team and with our director of photography, and most importantly with our camera operator, to choreograph these perfectly. Because if we were not prepared and we had to try to do these things 7 or 8 times instead of 2 or 3 times, the movie would be dead. We had like 31 days, guys, right? Something like that to shoot the movie. Mm. And so we really needed everyone to be perfectly coordinated. So me and Lorenzo Senatori and Sasha Proctor, our operator, and our special effects teams, and then our actors, really rehearsed the living shit out of this stuff. And in the last few days of the rehearsal, we threw Caleb in there. Scott was unable to do that because of his ankle at the time. And usually we were able to do it in 2 or 3 takes. There were, and you couldn't screw it up at any point along the way, because if you did, you would just have to start. And sometimes Caleb likes to throw a little improv at the end of scenes, and so we had to start over again on a couple of those. But
it doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't always work. But it hurt Caleb because he had to go run the fucking whole outpost again, and carrying all these weights and carrying this guy, and it was pretty intense. Scott has got this incredible instinctive feel for how to do this stuff. So there were a couple of very long takes with him as well. Mm-hmm. Didn't include running the entire outpost, but included moving from point A to point B to point C. It was almost like a dance, and he's particularly adept at that, and I'm really happy, because if he hadn't been, we would have been in quite a bit of trouble. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I'll tell you that we did, Scott, is that I knew that the biggest problem we were going to have would be the exhaustion on our operator. And so we devised a plan where we took apart the entire camera. It was an Alexa Mini, and we put almost the entire camera into a backpack and had him pretty much just holding the lens so that it wouldn't be too heavy on him. And we needed to create that. And for Caleb's biggest run across the entire length of the Outpost, I actually made the decision to shoot it with a drone. He would hold the drone in his hand, and then a couple times release the drone, let it fly over tarps and stuff, go overhead on Caleb, and then he'd catch the drone and follow him. So that had to require A, athleticism on the part of our operator, but B, Caleb having to have an
Not
understanding.
flinch when the propellers came.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. The propeller on the drone is flinging
Pretend
around.
that there's no propellers next to your head. Yeah, just be in the moment, man.
He didn't do action films like Scott has done, but both these guys were like absolutely extraordinary in their athleticism. It's probably the first time you've ever heard that, Caleb. But
yeah, it sure is.
Scott, what's your take on doing like scenes and like long takes like that? I mean, that's got to be, I would imagine, as an actor, what you strive for, because you're really into it. No one's interrupting you. You're really in the moment in that take. How was that for you?
Yeah, I think there's times it makes it or I guess maybe more advantageous for an actor to you get more, you get more opportunity to live in that character and to, I think really have the full energy of a scene sort of play out. Whereas, in different types of films, you action and then cut. At the same time, that process has its own advantages too, right? I mean, there's certain times you get a little bit more shoe leather to sort of mess with. If you screw up a line or you flub something, or you want to take something back and do something again, that there's more opportunity there because there are cuts. So you can, if you didn't nail it, you can pick things up again and maybe nail it. Whereas the way we did it, sometimes there's less room for error, which I guess adds more pressure, but at the same time, it does have its advantages, I guess.
Yeah, Caleb, one of the most powerful scenes in the film is actually not a combat scene. It's a more personal scene, a more intimate scene when Ty goes to talk to a therapist. How was it filming that scene? And how was it filming that scene?
Difficult. Difficult. I always knew that once I knew that was coming up, I stressed out about that scene quite a lot. Probably about, similarly to the scenes with Mace and stuff. Like there's aspects of the film that I was just really, and the run, just, that I was really going, oh boy, really nervous about, and really building up in my head to be something that, that you might fail at, or, whatever. And so, yeah, I was really nervous about that and whatnot. But Rod sent me is it okay, Rod?
Yeah.
Can I say this? Sure. Yeah, Rod sent me, Rod told me to watch, I hadn't seen Captain Phillips, and he wanted me to watch the end of the movie, a scene where Hanks is kind of just completely out of it in a way, and really having a really physical, he's overwhelmed physical and having a really hard time kind of just making sense out of anything that's happening around him. I still haven't seen the movie, but I think I really was upset because you never want to see another actor and go, okay, we need this kind of thing, we need this from you, and then worried that you mimic it or something like that. And so I watched it, and then I think I threw it out the window. But I understood what Rod was talking about. There's there's a reality there that is was very difficult to watch, and Hanks does a incredible job in this scene, and I haven't seen the film, but I can imagine that this film is summed up in some way within this scene in a lot of ways, maybe, but I'm talking out of my behind because I don't know. But I think I understood very, very easily what Rod wanted, and I think I'd understood before then, and was why I was so nervous about it, because I knew what needed to happen, and so I can only hope that happened, or
Can I
I'm
say
not
something
really a
about
good
that?
judge of whether it did or not.
Can I say something about that scene, Scott, please? Scott Mantz. There were a number of scenes that we decided to create while we were in Bulgaria. We were actually so efficient on all those one-ers you're talking about that we did buy ourselves some time. And I felt from getting to know Ty, who really suffers from PTS, that I wanted to show how that is another bit of victimization that people go through in these battles, and no better way than to show it in a scene where he meets with a therapist after the battle, which actually happened. And I spoke with her. I spoke to the actual therapist. I spoke to Ty, and we struggled with that scene, Caleb. I mean, we did like I think 10 takes of it.
Yeah, we did more than any take that I'd been a part of yet. Yeah.
Right, and it was struggling because sometimes it was a bit too much, and sometimes it was a bit too little, and eventually I fell on a piece of direction that Caleb is so brilliant at taking this stuff, and I told him, because he was crying a lot, and I said, Ty Carter is not going to cry in front of a woman. It's not going to fucking happen. In other words, try not to cry was really the direction. And I think that's what did it for us. And it just, I love when actors like Caleb and Scott and Orlando and all these guys, when we just latch upon what is going to be the key to the scene. Scott Eastwood had a scene like that, where he is trying to talk some sense into a guy who is literally losing his mind. And that's another scene that we did on the fly, I think. Right, Scott? That was something we decided on later on. And I think it's probably your best scene, or the sort of the most humanistic scene. And it's when you ask these guys to find the humanism in their characters and the chinks in their own armor that you see the best moments of performance, in my opinion.
Scott, let's talk about filming that scene, because I think Rod's right. I think that's another powerful scene in the film.
Rod, can I?
Yes, of course.
Can I tell the story?
You have my permission. Yeah.
Can I tell the whole story about this scene?
Without naming names. Yeah.
Well, originally the scene was written for a different actor. It was written for a different actor.
Different character.
Sorry. It was written for a different character. And Rod approached me and wanted me to do the scene, which is an uncomfortable conversation, I think, mostly because I don't want to take something from another actor. I don't want to be that guy. But he really, really wanted me to do the scene, and so we shot it. And I didn't have a terrible amount of time to prep for it, which sometimes I find can almost maybe work to your advantage, because I didn't have a ton of I had to make choices on the fly and just listen and react and kind of go with my gut. So sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't. I think in this case maybe it was good because it just I had to just listen and make some gut reactions to what the scene called for. I don't know, that's sort of all I have.
what he does not see, what Scott does not see so beautifully is realization. You know, not realization of a tactical military move, but realization of a human condition and something that has to happen. And also we get a sense of his own feeling of vulnerability, because this character was a fatalist. He felt that we could buy it at any point, and this guy wasn't making it easier. I will say that the actor who we had shot this scene before, the actor who did it absolutely nailed it. I mean, he gave maybe the best performance of his life. And it was a very difficult decision to not use that. I just felt that this moment needed to be between our lead and the guy that's leaving, not a supporting player, and somebody who was leaving the base. And it was, you talk about uncomfortable. Scott, I had to go tell this guy, look, I know you gave the best performance really that maybe you've ever given, and it's even an Oscar performance. And I really meant that. But I think this is one of those for the good of the film. But we were all watching Scott doing that scene, and it's like there was a moment where he realizes that, you know, he's trying to toughen the kid up, and he realized that's not going to happen, and he even puts his hand up. It was a move that Scott made really beautifully when a lieutenant is trying to stop a conversation, and a sergeant, his subordinate, puts his hand up and says, "Give me just a minute." And it's a great moment. It was done on the fly, and that takes an actor with instinct who understands his character really well. And we were like, I remember we all turned to each other when we were done and saying, you know, as unfortunate as it was for this other actor, we made the right decision for the film.
Caleb, I want to ask, you know, because this conversation is for actors, about, you know, what's sort of been going to be the takeaway for you making this movie? How did making The Outpost elevate you as an actor, make you a better actor?
Oh, it reiterated a lot of things that I think we all know, that if you don't put in the work, you know, nothing might come of, you know, then you're pulling stuff out of your butt, and that ain't gonna fly. At the same time, that I don't know, this movie in particular as well, like so many things as they were discussing earlier about being in the moment, and these long takes kind of issuing aspects like this, and keeping you present and alert in a way that I think we'll all be able to carry to our other jobs in the future. But more so at the end of the film, I felt proud, very proud of what I was a part of. Not in this kind of way, but just went in. Everybody's kind of, most people's attitudes, you know, and people that were acting like a little, you know, shit, excuse my French, or something like that, you know, it got nipped in the bud, you know, and or got squeezed, you know, but and everybody just put a tremendous amount of work, and I really think came from a similar place and understood the responsibility that we all had undertaken by joining into this. And Rod coming back after the death of his son, there was another kind of fire that there was a fire that'd been there before, but now it was burning another color or something, and it took on something else that and I think it permeated everything, you know, in a very, very, very heavy, grounded, you know, way. And just very honored to have been a part of it. But it's hard to say what takeaway necessarily, so to speak, as the garage door comes down. But yeah, I suppose there are quite a few things I'll be taking away from this.
What about for you, Scott? What's sort of the takeaway for you
that I have
as an actor?
Well, Caleb said it well. You don't do the work. You just suspect you show up. You know, you can't get lazy if you don't do the prep work beforehand, and you know, you're not going to have the tools in your bag when the time comes to deliver. But you know.
Well, thumbs up. And Rod, there are a lot of questions I asked myself watching this movie when it was over, especially like, how could they put the soldiers in harm's way like that? They were sitting ducks.
Yes.
But also, I mean, that was just the tip of the iceberg for the conversation I had with the people I watched it with. And what is the takeaway that you want people to take with them after watching The Outpost?
You know, when we tested this film with 3, 4, maybe more than that, 400 people or so, which is a very common thing that you do, you asked many questions. And there was one question that we had a 100% rate of consistency with. And that is that 100% of the people said that this movie was apolitical. You cannot leave this movie thinking that the director or the writers or the producers had any political point of view. Nobody will leave this film knowing if any of us are Democrats or we're Republicans or pro-Trump or we're Biden or whatever. None. And that was really important to me. What was more important to me, though, was that we left understanding something about the character of the American soldier. You know, I think the one thing that all of us can agree upon, or I hope all of us can agree upon, is that the soldier, especially in the volunteer army, is one of the great assets of our country. It's the heart of our country. These are good men. These are really good people. And most of the movies that are made about the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war are about the special units. They're about the Navy SEALs. Like Scott's dad made one of the best films, war films of the past 40 years. But he was a Navy SEAL, I believe, right, Scott? I think that's the case.
Yeah,
right. In Lone Survivor, Navy SEALs. Then you've got Special Forces. These were regular grunts. These were guys who, they came in, and half of them they were ready to leave as soon as they were done with this tour. Josh Hart was going to go back and be with his family. Sergeant Gallegos was going to go back and remarry his ex-wife. And they just wanted to go back to life. And now they're caught in this hellhole. And so I want people to understand that these are good people, and they're still over there, Scott. And they're sucking shit like it's nobody's business. And none of us know about it. Nobody's protesting. No, I have a theory on why, but there is no. They don't get the respect, I would say, that they deserve, and hopefully, this movie will allow them to do that. And I would say that the guy who wrote the book, Jake Tapper, there's nobody more pro-military than Jake Tapper, and so or pro the soldier than Jake Tapper. So I'm very happy to help represent that from the book.
Well, Rod Lurie, Scott Eastwood, Caleb Landry Jones, thank you so much for joining us for today's SAG-AFTRA Foundation conversation
Thank you.
About The Outpost. By the time this is uploaded, the movie will be on demand, and The Outpost is a must-see movie in every sense of the word, and watch it on your biggest screen possible.
Yes.
Right.
But they're also going to be in some theaters, Scott. You should look at your listings and see if it happens to be, and it's going to play in a few drive-ins, so maybe.
Well, definitely. If you could see it at a drive-in or any theater possible, do it safely. And for everyone watching, I just want to remind you to please check out in our comments section about our COVID-19 fund for the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. Find out how you can apply for relief from this pandemic. Once again, my name is Scott Mantz, and thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.